today, right? This is usually in the beginning. I just try and go over and highlight what we're going to be discussing, which for you is just going to be essentially me reiterating that to you. So this is the Eliminate the Stigma documentary. Last year we did a photo shoot where we highlighted different people's perspectives and different people's experiences with the disease of addiction, all with the common purpose of allowing them to share their story, getting their perspective out there, and ultimately raising awareness and eliminating the stigma attached with addiction. So this year we want to expand on that, and we want to film a documentary with the same common purpose, raising awareness, giving people the opportunity to share their story and their perspective, and then ultimately eliminating the stigma attached with addiction as well. So today we're sitting down with James Stangler of Norristown, Pennsylvania, and today we're going to be speaking about your mother. So James, before we get started, right, just tell us, you're a pretty impressive guy, right? So just give us a little background about yourself. How old are you? Where'd you go to school? Where'd you go to college? And what do you do for a living?
Sure, man. Thanks for the intro, Nell. So, as Darnell said, I'm 30 years old. I'm James Stangler. I'm from Norristown, and I'm 30 years old. I went to Drexel University and to get my degree in behavioral analysis, and I've made it my life's call is to work with children with autism to improve their speech and impact the community in any positive way I can.
Okay. And you got your undergrad
at Westchester University in psychology, and then Drexel University in applied behavior analysis.
That's amazing.
Thank you, man.
So if we backtrack a little bit, going way before that, how was life growing up for you?
Life growing up for me, it was difficult. There were a lot of changes in my early life. Growing up, my parents separated when I was 6 years old, which many people experience. And when I was a kid, I didn't necessarily know what my mother was experiencing as a single mother, and I certainly didn't know what she was experiencing in her battle with drug addiction. Things I can remember are that she was a phenomenal mother, loving, would walk us to school if I took too long to get ready. If I missed the bus, she'd walk me 3 miles through Norristown by herself. But with as great of a mother as she was, my childhood came with challenges due to her addiction. I can remember specific times of wondering if mom was going to be okay. And typically as I grew, I realized that little kids aren't supposed to wonder about if their parents are going to be okay.
That's right. It's interesting you bring that up. So I guess when you first found out that your mother was struggling with addiction, how old were you? And how was it, I guess, explained to you?
That's a great question. When I first became aware that something was off, I think I was about 12 years old. We had moved to Collegeville, my sister and I, and my mother, with my stepfather, Anthony. And it was also that year my mother had been diagnosed with cancer. But I started to notice as I got involved with sports and timelines when a child might need a ride that I didn't always know where my mom was. And I couldn't always consistently rely on having a ride home. I started to notice that there was often nights where at 11 p.m. her car wasn't in the driveway. So it was about 12 or 13 years old when I started to notice there was something going on.
Okay. Just trying to, I guess, expand on that, right? If you go a little bit more into detail about that, are you able to, I guess, walk me through the progression of your mother's battle with addiction? And I know you said that you started noticing things. I guess it's a two-part question. Once you walk me through the progression of her battle with addiction, are you able to, I guess, explain, was there a conversation ever had between like you and another adult, or you and her basically confronting those differences and those things that you started noticing while you were playing in sports?
Sure. So I think once I became aware of these things around age 13, I started to have memories of my earlier childhood. which fleshed out examples of maybe traumatic events in my life. As early as when I was, 8 years old, my mother was a single mom, and my father saw him on the weekends and supported financially, but things were hard for my mom. But I remember experiences of, one time specifically when I was 8 or 9 years old, I smelled smoke, and my sister and I shared a room on the second floor of the apartment, and there was sirens all outside, and my mom's bedroom had been on fire. It appeared that she had fallen asleep, maybe with a cigarette lit. And it was in that moment, as a kid, you don't know why. You're just scared. It was in the middle of the winter, and I'm standing outside in my underwear. The firefighters were yelling at my mom, and I remember one of them specifically saying they wanted to, take me with them. My mom wasn't going to have that. So that was one that once I became aware of an issue, I could think back and think this has been going on for some time. NA and AA have been a part of my life. To your question about, did an adult have a conversation with me? My mom was very forthright in her history of addiction and her goal of overcoming addiction. So from an early age, I got to sit with her at some NA meetings and be there with her. And maybe that was, maybe that's the life of a single mother. She's trying to do a lot at once, or maybe it was a means of a signal to some people with bad motivations there that my son's here. So for whichever reason her motive was, I was exposed to this for quite some time.
Okay. Are you able to, I know you said that your parents, I guess, what age did your parents get divorced or split up?
I was 6 years old.
Okay.
My earliest memories, on Moore Street, my father and mother had a home. We lived there with my sister and my older brother, Ryan. I remember the day that she kicked my dad out. And from that point on, we moved to Astor Street. And I learned when I was an adult, for the first 6 years of my life, my mother was sober.
How did that make you feel?
It made me angry with my father, because we all love mom so much and we know how wonderful she is. So I think about, man, this is the best woman I've ever met. Beautiful, intelligent, caring. There's kids involved. Whatever happened, how could you screw that up? And look how it's impacted her for her life. So yeah, that was a challenging thing. But on the flip side, I was also fortunate enough that my father was ever present, an amazing father, loved my mother still. So I was very fortunate that he stuck with us and came to every sports event and was consistent with me.
Awesome. So in those moments, right, of sobriety of your mother, like those memories, what do you remember? Paint me a picture of what you remember. What was your mother like sober?
Thanks for asking. Those are great memories, man. Those from the time maybe I think when I moved to Collegeville when I was 10, 11, we had a stretch of years there where my mom worked full time, got to go to concerts with my sister, cooked, love her cooking. And she really valued being a mom, a classic Catholic Italian mother. She loved that stuff. So we had a pretty happy household. My mother showed me my love of music and poetry and language. Those sober years, she showed me about being charitable. We didn't have extra clothes. We donated our clothes to the less fortunate. We didn't waste, these principles of not wasting our food because there's people that don't eat. They're wonderful years.
Awesome, bro. So through those years and those challenges, ups and downs, I guess my first question is how long did her battle last?
I believe my mother's battle with addiction lasted till her final breath. When I was 13 and noticed some of these behaviors of her addiction coinciding with her cancer treatments, my mom was then in a system of you have to see a doctor and be on some pretty strong medications. But someone with addictions history You're walking a very fine line of managing your medications and what is therapy and what is drug abuse. So for someone who might be struggling with drug abuse, you might take a pain pill because you are in devastating pain, but then your judgment is not the same as it was. You might be more susceptible to going to use. And I found that in my life, that there was a correlation between my mother's medical issues and her, going back to using.
Absolutely. So just kind of to get a further or a more in-depth perspective, right? Like conversely, as we were just touching on the sober moments, I know you touched on it briefly, but not necessarily in a negative way, but how did her use, right? If you were, just imagine you were speaking to a child whose mother or father is also battling addiction, and they're young and they don't really know what's going on. Paint a picture of the types of things, like specific instances that I guess you went through as a kid that I guess they can expect.
Sure. Some things that have stuck with me throughout my life. One troubling when my 8th grade graduation. I went to a small school. I was one of 13 kids in a class, so you knew everybody, you knew everybody's family. And at the end of the ceremony, I see my mom in the crowd. In the beginning of it, my school is located in Norristown, and at the end of the ceremony, my mom wasn't there. And my dad was there, but it was one of those things, maybe it was a trigger for him in their relationship, but he was angry. And once he knew that I was safe, like I had a ride or something, he left. It was really difficult, man, to go to friendlies with all my peers and their parents and be the only one without a parent representing them. It felt like the first of many times where I thought I need to play it cool and be myself and thrive and not share these secrets with my peers. There was many moments expanding into high school, not having rides from sports events. My mother also faced legal issues with her addiction. She was part of drug court in Norristown. And for a high school kid to, you go home and your mom's not there, she has to do some time. That was challenging, challenging to keep my poker face and challenging to care about the things we're supposed to care about as children, because I didn't know what was going to happen at home. I didn't know if she was okay. Expanded, certainly even in my young adulthood. When I went to Immaculata as a freshman, I'm motivated, I'm commuting an hour, but I'm so excited to start college. And my home life was so wild. Like, there was days I would wake up before my alarm was set to my mother's vomit, in the next room, what you would think would be from withdrawal. And to hear that at 5:30 in the morning before, you're taking I was taking 19 credits as a freshman. It was very difficult to buckle up and care about my own things. And it was always so conflicting for me because she loved so much. She loved her family so much. And sometimes you had to remind yourself in those moments, my mom loves me because this ain't her right now.
Were there ever days where you wondered when am I going to get that call today?
No, since I was 14 years old, bro. Every night, I worried if she was going to be okay. Despite going to see her and knowing that she was fighting and knowing that she's so in it with her family, but addiction is a disease that does not discriminate, doesn't care where you live. Didn't care where she lived or where I lived. So I worried about her often. And like I said about high school, it's something that I noticed into college and something I noticed into my adulthood. These things that we're supposed to care about that are important, being timely, studying, communicating. When your family and the ones that you love feel like it's like a whirlwind, you just want to enjoy your free time. It can be tough.
It can be. So growing up, right? Like, and just experiencing everything, just putting everything together in a whole culmination of everything. Um, in those stressful moments, did you feel like you had people to speak to about what you were going through, or because of the stigma that's surrounding addiction, did you kind of feel alone in the sense that you felt like you had to keep everything to yourself because, I don't want people to judge me for what's going on.
I think it was certainly closer to the latter of what you said. I didn't want anyone to know that my family wasn't okay. I couldn't let, pride, whatever it may be, the stigma associated with addiction. I didn't want to have to explain why my mom wasn't there to pick me up from practice or why I was late. I didn't want to explain why I didn't give a shit about my homework because I could pay attention in class. I didn't want, and I didn't necessarily feel like I had someone to talk to. Certainly not all the time. I think I was lucky to have some friends who maybe experienced trauma as well and just kind of got it.
Did your friends know?
I don't think most of my friends knew. Some of my friends I shared with one of my high school friends, Pat. He experienced some things, and we could confide in one another a bit. But
how did that? I don't mean to interrupt you. How did that make you feel, being able to confide in someone else and kind of get off of your chest what you're going through, and more importantly, I guess, being able to relate to someone else who has gone through the same things?
No, I felt home. I felt like I was at home. What home is supposed to feel like when you're with someone that is listening to you and has experienced some of the things that you have, and to know that, like, man, I respect this guy. I respect his family, and to know that I wasn't alone gave me strength. Like, it gave me motivation to keep going. And that was in high school. I had another friend, Ryan, who I don't know if he always knew about my mother's addiction. He knew about her medical struggles and how it impacted me. But that's a friend where I felt very welcome being in that home all the time. And Sherry, just the only question she'd ask me is if I wanted more food. So I was very fortunate in that way. But other than a few people, most of the people that I knew, I didn't want to share that, and it hurt.
I understand exactly what you're saying. So I guess a more general question, right? Like, why do you think you're a pretty smart guy? I've known you for a long time. So why do you think that there is such a stigma surrounding the disease of addiction?
That's a difficult one, but part of it is I think in America we see results and we see products. So if we associate addiction with homelessness, it's unsightly for many people. It makes people uncomfortable. They must have made choices every day of their life to get there. I made better choices. So we see a product and we see a person that's struggling, and not what led them to get there, not who didn't help them or who didn't listen, or not a system that failed them. So I think it's a matter of maybe personal privilege. You haven't experienced it, so you're above it. And that's maybe my belief about the stigma.
That's a great answer. So just kind of segueing off of what you just said, right, and going more into that, like, for some reason in society, people see someone in that vulnerable state of either being, homeless or, suffering from addiction, standing outside of a bar, missing teeth, holding a 40, right? And, for some people, not that it's necessarily, funny, but people look at that and, like you said, they kind of look down and they kind of ignore the fact that, sometimes life happens. Like, it might not be what you're thinking in the sense that, oh, this person made these decisions to get here. No, sometimes, like, life just happens. And, I know there were plenty of times for myself, more specifically, like, if I didn't have a mom or a dad to go to, I could have very well been sleeping on the streets myself. I was just fortunate enough to be able to call someone and say, hey, can I stay here tonight? So I guess my question is, how do we get to a point where we look at someone in that vulnerable state? Because in your instance, that person that someone is looking down on would have been your mother, right? And I think that's what people fail to realize. Like that's someone's mother, that's someone's son, that's someone's aunt, that's someone's uncle. How do we get to a state where we kind of process it that way instead of looking down on someone?
Well, I think for me to speak from only my personal experience, what I can say is that my mom had a devastating, one might call evil, journey with addiction. But what I can say is that my mother unequivocally was the best person I knew. Not because she was my mom, but because she was intelligent and beautiful and smart and selfless and anything that I would think someone would aspire to be as a human, as an American. And addiction and people not looking out for her when she was young and her not having appropriate outlets took her maybe from someone who could have lived a 90-year healthy life and contributed to me losing my mother, 3 years ago. So I would say that we need to realize, to your point, that you could be the best person in the world and it could be you or your daughter. And everyone was a son or a daughter at some point, and we could treat them as such.
Absolutely, absolutely. Just kind of going off of what you just said, right? Like you just said, your mother was, loving, caring, beautiful. Give me some more. Give me some more positive things about your mother. Just roll some off.
My mother, she would go through my clothes, every year and meticulously go through anything that we had for extra. And we would go to local charities, St. Vincent's, and donate our clothes on her free time while working a full-time job. She constantly, in her goal of sobriety, would take people under her wing. Maybe people that didn't always have the best intention, but, she would bring people to our house and they could eat. My mom would feed people that didn't have a place to go eat. And she did that till the day she died. There was never a fight too big for her family. Never a fight too big with her family, that she couldn't get over and welcome us in. It's hard to describe, bro. She was extremely selfless, and I hope that some of her characteristics are reflected in me. That's all and that's what I can say about addiction. The person that I aspire to be truly is the person my mother is. But addiction did not discriminate with her. So anyone that might know me and think that if they think maybe like I'm a good person or they think I could be a role model for someone, just know that my role model is someone that battled addiction through all of their days.
That's beautiful, bro. So, with any other disease, right? Like, or not even just disease, problems in life, just general issues, right? We have no issue or no problem going to someone, and we feel comfortable enough to go to someone that we trust and we love to say, hey, James, we're good friends. I love you. You love me. I trust you. You trust me. I'm going through something. Help me. I need your help. But for some reason with this, right, like you were just kind of alluding to in the beginning, that it's not that easy. We're a lot more apprehensive to go to someone and tell them like, hey, I'm going through something right now. Can I speak to you? I need your help. Just something as simple as I need your help. I need you to listen to me. I guess my question is, if you can, what do you think we need to do to get there to avoid kids growing up in similar situations?
I think, Darnell, through exposure and normalizing a situation that it's normal, it's ever present, and it's a situation that we don't need to whisper about. We can look at it. And if we all looked at it as adults in our school programming, with our guidance counselors, and we made it part of our curriculum, so we don't learn about addictions when we're children. So I think everything, my experience, I have a master's in learning. I love to learn, and it starts when we're children. So I think if we can get educational programs about addiction, about drug abuse, I don't think the answer, you can't just tell children don't do it because it's bad. That's never going to work. We want to do it more as kids. So I think with exposure and actually a focused curriculum in schools, I think kids will be better suited.
I couldn't agree more with you, bro. I love that answer. So I guess final question, right? If you were sitting in front of your mother, right? You're a very, very accomplished guy, right? So you overcame everything. You went to school. You have a master's degree. Like, you're doing it, bro. Like, you're doing it. If you were sitting in front of your mother right now, like, and she was sitting in this chair, you know, what do you think she would say to you watching you become the man that you have become?
I think my mom would be very proud. You know, I wish she was here with you. Don't want to replace you, but I wish she was here too, sitting right there. I think she would be very proud of me. You know, I was very fortunate that before she passed, I was able to spend time with her, and she was able to apologize to me, which was an incredible thing. I didn't need her apology. I loved her selflessly. But she was able to apologize to me for any pain that she has caused me with her addiction. And she let me know that anytime she used wasn't because she was happy. It wasn't because she wanted to get away. In those moments, she hated herself. And if she was sitting in front of me, I would just say, like, I wish you loved you, how you love me, how we love you. Yeah, you know, I wish these people that struggle, sometimes we can forget to love ourselves. That we're not pieces of shit, part of my language, for having mental issues or drug abuse issues. And it's something I've struggled with to share, you know. So thank you for giving me the opportunity.
Of course, bro. I want to thank you for giving us and trusting us with the opportunity to, and trusting us with the chance to allow you the platform to share your story. Like I said, I've known you for a long time. I've watched you since we were in high school, bro. Like, I'm looking around, you've got pictures of your girl on the wall. You know, you guys are, you know, taking the next step, hopefully. You know, you're a very accomplished dude. Like I said, you overcame everything. Like, I'm telling you right now, like, as your friend and your brother, like, I'm proud of you, bro.
Thank you, bro.
I'm proud of you. And I just want to thank you for giving us the opportunity to providing you the platform of sharing your story. So
It means
beautiful.
a lot, brother. Thank you so
Beautiful,
much.
bro.